Hello, fellow time travelers and comic book aficionados. I just got back from Zombie Unicorn Comics, where I was browsing and looking at the shelves, and I saw shiny metallic covers, ones that I was used to from back in the day, particularly from 1993. So I was looking and I turned to Ron, the shop owner, very great guy, very knowledgeable about comics, as well as his associate, Rob, and we spoke and said, yeah, they're coming back. And here they are with Joker #2 with this shiny relief cover, and also Wildcats right over here that pays tributes to Image Comic and Jim Lee. So it was a blast from the past, and it had me thinking. I remember those books. Oftentimes people said these were a gimmick. They're kind of a money grab because of their flashy covers. Other books I remember were shrink wrapped and sealed with a card inside of it, a trading card, or even those with holograms. So it's the age of metal, foil covers, holograms, and also shrink wrap and trading cards, all a part of history, and they're coming back. Even the back even says, rewind to the 90s. Taking a look here at this book is quite interesting because the inside panel, very 90s. You can even see the colors and the geometry that's truly hallmark the 90s. Even though the artwork inside is modern by the current artist from November of 2022 when this book came out, we can see that they're keeping to the old throwback of back in the day. So 5 books are currently released right now in November of 2022, which we are in now, of Batman, Justice Society, Wildcats, and the Joker. So these are the first of the rewind coming back. Will there be more? Are they going to be extras? Are the 90s coming back in 2022? How can it be possible? How did the 90s come back? I thought they were gone. I thought it was a thing of the past. Uh-oh, I hear something. Sounds like a message, a subspace signal from my time machine. Oh my goodness, I better check it out. Give it a couple cranks so I can display the message. Yup, here we go. Let me think. Oh, come on, MJ. Come on, MJ. All right, that's the Bulls won it. The Bulls did it. 3-peat. Oh, 1993. This is the year. This is great. Oh man, just played some Nintendo, walked outside, rode my bike, and just saw the Bulls win a championship, the 3-peat. Oh yes. And I'm loving these Tiger handheld. I really play these on the go. This is what I got, 1993. This is the best technology ever. You got Batman and Spider-Man, and it's so cool. 1993. Yeah. Hey, time traveler, have you played these Tiger handhelds? Hey, you need to go back to 1993. That's where all the fun is at. Come back to this time. I'm going to give you a time token so you can put into your time machine. Come on, get to it. 1993. Come on. Well, looks like the time traveler from the past, me, gave me some tokens so I can put into the time machine. Let's see what we can do. Well, ready to go back in time? We're in 1993. Lo and behold, I even have books from that time. Look at the holograms. Look at the silver foil colors. Oh boy, this can be quite a strange time. In 1993, it was an interesting time for Marvel because back in 1992, just a year in rewind, they acquired Fleer Trading Card Company for $540 million. So there we see the advent of trading cards and also cardstock covers because it was made available to them from their new acquisition. So Marvel was putting out more comic books, more foil covers, more holograms and trading cards than ever before in an attempt to sell comic books. One might look back at 1993 and say it was a terrible time for comics. It's where the artwork kind of didn't meet expectation, overgrown bodies and lengthy proportions were drawn. Art was just created for the sake of creating, and quality wasn't there. With foil covers and trading cards and a lot of gimmicks, it's kind of seen as a kind of a not so great era in comics, the 90s, so to speak. It comes after the Copper Age from the 80s, right into what is called the Chrome Age. The Chrome Age is exactly that. The covers were metallic, they had a sheen to it, and they were part of the production that we know is 90s comic. I personally grew up with these books. I saw them in the stands of Walgreens in my local comic shop. I picked them up, mesmerized by them. Other collectors might look at it as a kind of an age where it was all advertising. It was all trying to get money. The artwork was not even that desirable, especially coming off of a golden age and silver age. You get into the copper age and then the chrome age, the 90s, where the art was not so great. But let's take a look at this time in history. Let's give maybe a little bit of love or hate to this time where these books came out. As we get in gear for 1993, it was in June of 1991 where we see a foil making an appearance on the covers of comic books. And this time the foil shows a full character. It's done before in the 80s with a logo, but this time Marvel did it throughout with the Silver Surfer in issue number 50 as an anniversary special. This issue happens to be the third printing of the book, and this is the first printing where we have Thanos and the Silver Surfer working it out in the cosmos. And the artwork is pretty gruesome as we have the Silver Surfer upside down and being taken through the universe. So this is the beginning of an age where the foil is becoming more apparent. As we get to it, take a look here, looking at Silver Sable. You can see in the viewer right here from my time machine, creating a subspace signal, is that there are a lot of trading card advertisements in the book. You can see right there where the action pops out, and in between you see some storyline, as well as the right there, some advertisements for baseball cards and basketball cards. Notice the artwork. It's the heads were a little smaller to what I'm usually accustomed to looking at Silver Age artwork. There's a lot of brawn, there's a lot of legs and arms showing, and even chest hair. The artwork kind of has a lot of criticism among purist collectors, saying, it's not really the art that they come to know. But nonetheless, it's the 90s, and there it is. Also in June 1992, as we saw Silver Sable, the issue of the Spectacular Spider-Man, the 30th anniversary edition, also appeared at the same month and year. And it was the beginning of these hologram covers, as you can see right there in the 3D effect with the web slinger, celebrating from 1962 to 1992, the 30-year anniversary and commemoration of the Amazing Spider-Man. And the book, as you can see in the viewer here, features some side stories and also some introductions and posters that make for a fun read. This is one of 4 books. The 4 books came in different colors, from red, green, blue like this one, and also black. And a month later, in July of 1992, we have the second installation of the book with another hologram, this time in front of a building, shooting the webbing outward with the web of Spider-Man. And this happens to be issue number 90. You can see in the viewer there some of the artwork that characterizes it, as well as the advertising. You can see Fleer, trading card companies, basketball and baseball cards being advertised. It's also start to see advertisements of video games, as the Nintendo and the Sega Genesis were very popular among the youth at the time. So the action is changing. There's still a lot of action as opposed to what we've seen in the storyline in the 70s and 80s. After July comes August in 1992, and we have the introduction of Spider-Man 2099, and I was able to get this autograph last month by Sam De La Rosa. I also included a video in my playlist. Be sure to check that out. And he was able to sketch the character right on the cover with his autograph. In this book, there's also a poster featuring Maximum Carnage, Spider-Man, and also Venom. So this is where we start to see Venom taking more of a role in the Marvel Universe as Tom DeFalco had created. To conclude the 4 hologram covers, there's this green one here from September of 1992, and we have yet another hologram of Spider-Man upside down, and the book was illustrated and inked by Ron Friends, who I have the autograph right there on the bottom. Looking at everything together, you can see the colors representing each particular book. Jumping from comic to comic made collecting tough, and it just got harder at the end of 1992, transitioning into 1993, where Marvel created an imprint series called 2099. And this is the start of the series here. You can see by the stamps, November, December from 1992 to January and February, kicking off the new year that we're in now, 1993. And we can start by looking at Spider-Man 2099. And this book was created by Rick Leonardi, the cover art rather, with the blue and the reds that make up this character of the multiverse. The other book, a little lesser known character, Savage 2099. Well, Doc Savage has been around for a while, but you can see the brawn and the extra flashiness and true 90s mullet and hair and earring from back in the day. So 1992 is finishing and starting with a bang here with these foil bordered covers. Right here we have Dr. Doom as Doom 2099 with this electrifying cover, and also the Punisher with bullets flying as he's moving his arms. And this was the 90s, folks. As we were talking about Marvel transitioning from 1992 to 1993 with their foil covers and unique portrayal of characters in the 2099 series, January of 1993 kicks off with a comic book that made history. And that's the Death of Superman in this polybag plastic bag. And inside of the issue is a gray tombstone cover as one of 2 variant covers that DC put out to show this sad story. I remember this was even on the newscasts as people were waiting outside of their comic book shop, and I too waited to get my hands on this memorable, shocking issue. And it was truly shocking, as you thought, Superman's invincible. How can he succumb to any villain or any evil-doing creature? And that happened to be Doomsday. And I remember even opening it up and seeing an armband, and the comic heroes were walking and holding Superman's body. And Doomsday, with this right here, this center page right there, was an all-out brawl. So this brings back a lot of memories as I look at this book. It was bittersweet because I really love Superman, and this was the first of seeing how maybe mortal Superman was. And this was in January to kick off the year 1993. So the polybags, hologram covers, and more are just beginning right here, right now. Why DC? Why? And now in 2022, we see a reproduction of the same issue in another polybag. Talk about full circle, it came back. Furthermore, there were trading cards inside the bag, as well as stickers showing the characters in the book, including Doomsday and Lois Lane right here. And these were also stamped like stickers too. And also a clipping of an obituary dedicated to Superman. And this was, as a kid, kind of scary to me. I admitted taking it to my parents and said, look at this. This is the Death of Superman. Is this it? A hero that I started with in comic book collecting. So we're already seeing how 1993 is shaping up from transitioning from 1992. We saw the covers here from the Marvel imprint 2099 series created by Tom DeFalco and editor Joey Cavalieri. The beginnings and starts of these shiny foil borders. But now we could fill in those borders even more with February bringing in a holographics cover. A shiny cover here. This is with featuring Venom, a very popular character that's taking form in the 90s. And here we start to see more full spreads of foil covers. This book takes place in San Francisco, where we see the hero, anti-hero Venom gracing the pages. And you see that gritty artwork, like in the streets, as we see in New York, kind of 80s, 90s fashion, the clothing or lack of thereof. And a lot of the story, you still see that artwork again with very small waist and proportions, heavy upper body, especially right there with Venom and this character here. Could be a side character. So the 90s, like with the Terminator coming out and those type of ninja movies, we just see too much brawn, more so than we're usually accustomed to in comic books. Again, in this book we have Fleer showing its latest card, because Fleer is pretty much a property now and a namestay for Marvel. And this is how the artwork is going, panel by panel, crammed in with just action. It's skipping storyline and just jumping into lasers, bullets, and smash kapow and everything that you could possibly fit in there. So it is a neat book because of the cardstock and the cover. I was really excited to have my copy signed by Sam De La Rosa not that long ago. This is truly a gem, or a kind of an artifact, if you will, from the time machine, of course, from 1993. So we're just beginning the year. We're going to go into the next month. And here we are in March. I've got two samples to show you, one of which is a very popular cover. And this is issue number 375 of The Amazing Spider-Man. It pays tribute to the very first issue as we open up the pages, and you can see the cover right here and a few chapters of the stories that will be told in this book. A nice heavy cardstock that you're feeling again. Also on the back, advertisement for the trading cards for the X-Men, as a lot of non-sports related trading cards are coming into the picture. But just flipping through the pages and the splash pages, we see the grittiness right there of none other than Venom. As we know, he's going to take on Spider-Man. And Venom was fairly new at this time as a new character. Advertisement for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Some of the animated series are making their way into video games. So the advertisements are now no longer board games or toys or Dungeon and Dragon, not even cupcakes and desserts. It's strictly action-packed video games like Bart Simpson's right here in this Super Nintendo game. And also trading cards. But just looking through, you see that artwork, the line work, the jawbones, the characters still taking on more brawn than anything else. And we didn't really see that in the more modest Silver Age. It was just the sign of how some of the decorum and keeping, not showing too much, is now being shown more in the 90s, a little bit more skin and even teeth. Look at that, as we have a battle, an epic battle here in March of 1993. So it's just kind of neat to see these panels. There's never a break actually, so when you're turning the page, you're always going to see more action, trying to follow up the other page before it, including this fist from The Thing actually making an appearance, it looks like. So a lot of stories in here, nice shiny cover, as we have the episode of the anniversary for the 30 years of Amazing Spider-Man. Becoming more popular now among collectors, is picking up this copy. And of course, in the same month, we went from those holofoil covers to just pure chrome covers. And this is much like the cover we saw at the beginning of this video. The DC is coming back with their Rewind series, of the 90s, and this was who did it first. And this is Avengers number 360. It's kind of funny, like a 360 or 180. This is really a 360 on comic book covers. And this is Altered Vision. You could see the embossment right there, elevated from the cardstock. This is a heavy book. The pages are still newsprint, but it still feels heavy. And you can see the artwork right there in Vision. Kind of looks more like a Copper Age rendition. I do like the artwork here, but we're still getting into that brawn and muscle action there. And just a lot of floating and lit up blast from phasers and lasers. Yeah, now we're starting to get into the year 93, and we're already looking at more baseball cards ads. Oh, this is kind of neat here. They do have a little profile view of the different characters, the new Avengers that are presenting at this time, at this year, including Crystal, Cold Tiger, to name a couple. The Swordsman, well, he's been around for a really long time, since the beginning of the Avengers series. Magdalene kind of highlights their power, their dexterity. And some magazines in the 90s like to show different strength and powers, especially Nintendo Power Magazine. They used to rate the artwork of their video games. They used to rate the speed and the graphics. They used to rate the storyline. So we're seeing some of the comic books adopt that little bars to rate, which we didn't really see before, to give a little notion of where they stand. So this is a neat book, because from front to back, it is a pretty good cardstock, and this is the origin of it right here in March of 93. So March is over, and we just saw the beginning of the holofoil covers and chrome covers, but it also marks an interesting year where more comic book companies are coming into the picture, particularly Valiant and Image Comics. And right here is a April comic from 1993 featuring Youngblood. There's also Bloodshot, other Wildcat, and Rob Liefeld moved away from his work with Marvel and X-Men, and also artist Jim Lee, to create Image Comics. Now's a time where artists and writers are starting to see their work take off, and they want to have their own part of that, to own the intellectual property rather than have the publisher, the big name publishers like DC and Marvel, kind of take control of their work and ownership. So we start to see the emergence of Image Comics, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, taking their own creative licenses to create more books and stories, which kind of starts the fall of the comic book industry that's kind of creeping up on the horizon. And that's an interesting history too. But before we get into that detail, look at the artwork here. Very gruesome. This book has two books. As you flip it over, it has another story here, and you have Strike File here and another one there. Talk about putting two variant covers together. You can see it's 25 cents. These were so mass produced in the 90s on high quality paper that there were so many copies of it that speculators were saying, oh, this is going to be pretty neat. This happens to be a #1 issue, and normally you don't see #1 issues going for 25 cents like this, that I got just a couple months ago. But just to show, the artwork is just too much. Of course, Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee's anime style is what really boosted X-Men and gave Marvel a second wind in that particular franchise. We're starting to see kind of these new characters, almost a little generic of sorts, but just trying to make it in to the comic book industry, showing here. So it's pretty neat, the artwork, just to see how they're drawn, but we're becoming more and more saturated in 1993 with this type of work. Image Comics, it's starting to grow. And what also is starting to grow out of hand are more and more foil covers. And now we're in May, and we can see here the Spectacular Spider-Man. We just saw Amazing Spider-Man a couple months before celebrating. Now we're seeing new armor appearances, and the hype is real. Just saying new armor, new characters, introducing an all-new daring Spider-Man. So every book is like an original new issue, and it's kind of mind-boggling of how the advertisement is going here. This is a John Romita cover. I've always liked John Romita Jr. and Sr.'s work, and we see this holofoil with the X-Men logo glowing in the background. So again, this is 1993. This is May, and it's getting out of hand. A lot of foil covers, and again, the action is just fighting, flying, and the Green Goblin, and more Norm Osborn right there. So the advertisements are still sticking to video games. Even now, we're getting a 2-page ad for the video games. Before it was 1 or 2, so a lot of the licenses are going toward the video games. So, and on all back covers, all 3 of them, check it out. It's still Cracker Jacks and card ads on the back. So foil, Cracker Jacks, and cards. Did I hear more foil glossy covers? Oh yes, now we're in June, and here they are again. A second sample of the chrome cover, and this is kind of nice because it's all silver actually. I'm actually admiring some of these comics more than I did for some reason. Is that more sinister of me? I don't know. But again, we have the Vision. Actually, this is the Avenger with the Swordsman and Captain America. We have a #1 issue of the Infinity Crusade with a nice gold cover right there. And then we also have another Image Comics. This time Jim Lee is full blown with Wildcat Trilogy, another #1 issue with this purple glare in the background, purple foil cover. So we are in the foil age right now, folks. We've gone from copper and bronze, now we're in the chrome/foil. But what's interesting to note, I have a little heart and a soft spot for Image Comics because it's the artist taking ownership and doing what they want to do for themselves. And Jim Lee here, colors by Joe Chodo, and a lot of the Brandon Choi and Jim Lee are co-creators of Wildcat. And I remember seeing these and saying, oh, these are new. It's not Marvel, it's not DC. But look at all that going on. You got very small heads, very broad and big shoulders, and no feet. Kind of noticed there's not a lot of lower body, it's all upper body. The women were drawn to be a little bit more enticing. So it's worth noting that Image Comics and Marvel are starting to take a shift to the adult audience more so than the kids and teenagers that used to read comic books in the past, in the 60s and 70s. They're no longer joke books or funny books, but very serious, gritty action geared toward adults that can probably spend more money. And that's why you're seeing such characters look the way they do, revealing the way they do, and kind of mesmerizing you with more of some sexual undertones, if I may say so, including side views right there and menacing looks. And it's not really for kids. And even here, it's just a change and transition in the 90s that's starting to turn some people off, and that a little bit of an effect of the comic book industry foreshadowed. So interesting to note that adults only. I wonder what the 4th of July will bring. And another foil cover, instead of the hologram of the X-Men or the webbing of Spider-Man, we have some sparkles. And we have Jim Starlin's Warlock, already seeing a lot of popularity with the Infinity series. And now the characters are getting their own debut. And this is a #1 issue of Warlock Chronicles right there. And nonetheless, we're still seeing a lot of video game ads, including this one here for the Super Nintendo, which I remember playing as a kid. Konami is the brand name, but the artwork is just sprawled all over, more mural-like. You can see the shadows and the shading and the anatomy of the characters, which is embellished a lot. Other characters too, more legs, more small waistline right there, and no feet again. You don't really just see the upper body and the action kind of popping up at you. And now the stories are a little shorter. They're kind of spread out more, and you're not getting a beginning and a conclusion in the book, so you have to start getting more books. So now we have to wait to the August issue and September issues to see more of this. And did you really think that the foil covers in 2099 series would let up by the middle of the summer? It's still here to stay. Here with the first appearance of Hulk 2099 in his book, in this thick summer edition, as well as a team-up with Image Comics and Valiant Comics. Bob Layton from Valiant Comics and also Rob Liefeld of Image Comics tried to team up and work and create stories and artwork for more of a collaborative piece. It was usually riddled with troubles as deadlines weren't met, and sometimes Bob Layton would have to wait for Rob to finish his stories, creating a little bit of a strife in getting these books to print much later, and a lot of collectors were impatient and having to wait up to almost 4 months to get a copy of the next issue because the writing and artwork didn't come together as quickly to deadline. So these new publishers faced some challenges, which ultimately led to some disinterest in collecting, affecting the hobby in 1993. Looking at the artwork, we're still seeing a lot of advertisements for Wildcat, Mirage, and a lot of big page spreads as well. This time much bigger to fill the pages rather than the smaller panels, as the storyline was trying to be advanced. A lot of mural-like, collage-like artwork with just a lot of heads and upper body. It's an interesting time. You see those foil covers, very enticing to pick up. This one looks like it's made of metal, and the logo, Valiant mixed with Image right there. So what started toward the end of 1992 and took full form in 1993 even continued into 1994 with these 3 samplings here from April, December, and also May of 94. So we have War Machine and metallic cover here with the black and aluminum-like foil, as I can show you there. We also have an embossed Spider-Man in his Spider-Man Adventure book, issue #1. And we also have this pretty cool Fantastic Four book, as it also is a May 400 edition. So this is actually from 1995. So we can see the echoes of foil and holograms and even some polybag books with trading cards still bouncing and resonating in 1995. So we have to thank the year 1993 for really bringing foil into the forefront. And so I want to thank you for letting me taking you on a tour of this time in history in the mid-90s. Tell me, are you a fan of these chrome foil covers or these holograms that you see here? Are they something that catch your eye, or is it something you want to collect? The interesting note about this is that during this time there was a high volume of such comic books being produced on high quality paper, and what happened, it created a speculator bubble. a lot of comic book collectors were buying several copies of #1 issues at the time, hoping that it would be worth a mint later on. But the trouble is, in the Silver and Golden Age, a lot of those books in the past were poor grade and also very rare and scarce in production. In contrast, in the mid-90s, the volume runs were so high and in such good quality that it was never rare or hard to find such a book in such poor condition as these are, almost like they were on the shelf. So with that being said, they created a bubble leading in 1996 to the comic book crash. Almost 2/3 of local comic book shops ran out of business, sitting on a lot of inventory as customers were shying away from buying such gimmicky foil covers. So it begs the question, why is it coming back? Why did we just see this new series of 90s Rewind? Is it nostalgia for something that was kind of fun and hip to see, like these shiny covers? Or are they still going to be a part of our comic culture? Either way, it's fun to explore, and 1993 was a pivotal year for that. Thank you for watching, everybody, and enjoy. Until next time.